15th edition of the Materials Management Web Academy. We are so happy to have you participating. This 90-minute webinar is hosted by the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency to provide training and networking opportunity to state and local governments, non-governmental organizations, and other stakeholders interested in sustainable materials management, specifically today the K-12 school sector. As George mentioned, today's topic is changing how we think about our resources for a better tomorrow, how to donate surplus food from K-12 schools. As you may have heard, there was a joint announcement yesterday by the USDA, United States Department of Agriculture, and EPA on the United States' first ever national food waste reduction goal, calling for a 50% reduction by the year 2030. As part of the effort, the federal government will have a new partnership with charitable organizations, faith-based organizations, private sector, local, state, and tribal governments to reduce food loss and waste in order to improve overall food security and conserve the nation's natural resources. So all the more reason for the K-12 school community to join us in this effort, and we applaud the actions of today's speakers. The webinar hosted today will show how K-12 schools improve their bottom line, feed hungry people, reduce wasted food by learning from schools engaged in surplus food donation from school cafeterias. Also, the USDA will clarify the food donation policy and legal implications of food donation. Today, before we start, we're going to do something a little new and ask you some polling questions. So, George, can you pull that up? Here is poll number 1. Does your school currently donate any surplus food, or does it plan to in the future? If you'd be so kind, could you please answer our question? While the answers are tabulated, we will get going. Today, we have a joint presentation by the 4 speakers. After each speaker, we'll pause and answer 1 or 2 burning questions. So please type questions into the question box. We also have time at the end of the presentations for additional questions, so please feel free to type as we speak. So,
just pull the results, Chris.
I see the results, and based on that, we have about 2/3 of you have no food donation policies or programs in your school. So excellent, thank you for joining us. For the 1/3 of you who do, again, kudos to you, and we would love to hear more about your efforts. So send us a note either in the questions or in the survey at the end of the webinar. So with that, George, if we just put the disclaimer up. Our first speaker will be Andre. Oh, excuse me. So moving into today's webinar, this is our standard disclaimer, and now to the webinar. Our first speaker is my colleague Andre from EPA's Los Angeles field office, and he's our Food Recovery Challenge Coordinator in LA. Thanks again for participating. Let's get started. Andre, the clicker is yours.
Thank you, Chris.
Great, we can hear you. Perfect.
Good day, Food Recovery Challenge participants, sustainable food management advocates, and foodies. I am going to give you an overview of the challenges we face in wasted food, as well as EPA programs and tools for preventing and recovering wasted food. So first, some statistics. I love food, and I'm amazed at how much food goes to waste. The United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization estimates that 1/3 of the world's food is lost or wasted, most of which is fresh produce. Jonathan Bloom wrote a book called America's Wasteland, where he used EPA's data to estimate that Americans waste enough food to fill a college stadium every day. That's the equivalent of about 40% of our food in the U.S. going to waste. How much is this costing us? We throw away nearly $162 billion annually in food. That's about $500 per person. In our households, we're wasting between 15 to 20% of the food we're buying. And this occurs while 1 in 6 Americans lacks a secure food supply. We use about 1/4 of our water to grow wasted food. 1/4 of water just to grow wasted food. At a time of historic drought, preventing wasted food is an important strategy for water conservation. U.S. food waste uses enough land to feed the world's hungry twice over. This diagram from the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization shows that if food wastage were a country, it would be the #1 water consumer in the world for agricultural products. We use enough energy to power the country for over a week to grow wasted food. That's 300 million barrels of oil per year, which is 4% of U.S. oil consumption, to grow food that is ultimately lost or wasted. Here's another diagram, also from the United Nations, illustrating that if food wasted were a country, it would be the world's third largest emitter of greenhouse gas emissions after China and the U.S. So where is this waste occurring? It's actually happening from farm to fork. There's wasted food at production, handling, processing, distribution, and consumption. The opportunity to recover wasted food is at every step of the food supply chain. And just as a reminder, if you can place your phone on mute, that would be fantastic. About 1/5 of our municipal solid waste is food waste. After recycling and composting, food waste was the largest component of municipal solid waste discards at 21.1%, more than plastic or paper in 2013. We discard more food waste to landfill compared to all of our other municipal solid waste, and yet food waste is the least recovered material. The good news is that food recovery rates have more than doubled from 2009 to 2015. So how do we grapple with the shocking scale of wasted food, and what path can we take in order to begin to prevent, reduce, and recover wasted food? Well, since I'm based here in Los Angeles, entertainment capital of the world, I bring you EPA's food recovery hierarchy to the rescue. The food recovery hierarchy prioritizes actions that we can take to prevent and divert wasted food from the landfill or incineration. These actions are from most preferred to least preferred, as you can see on the left-hand side of the triangle. The most preferred is preventing food waste before it is created. This is called source reduction, or food waste prevention. A primary goal here should be to eliminate the need to manage food as a component of the waste stream. An example of source reduction at school is tracking which dishes generally have more leftovers and either make less of the dish or substitute it with a more popular dish rather than continuing to throw the leftovers away. If you focus on source reduction, this is what you will hear. That's the sound of money going into your piggy bank. Remember, anything below source reduction on this hierarchy is costing the food service organization, the food service provider, costing them money for the food purchase that goes to waste, the wasted labor, energy and water for preparing, serving, and disposing of any wasted food, and wasted money on food scraps hauling fees. This is the sound of money going into the trash when food goes to waste. If you do have wholesome surplus food, next in the hierarchy, donate that food to people in need. Third, feed safe, fresh food scraps to animals like pig farms. Industrial uses includes rendering fats, oils, and grease and turning it into fuel. You can also send food scraps to an anaerobic digester, which captures the methane for use as energy. Composting turns food waste into a valuable soil amendment, which also retains water. The least preferred option is sending food scraps to a landfill or an incinerator. K-12 schools can use EPA's Guide to Conducting and Analyzing a Food Waste Management to learn how to do a food waste assessment. The guide shows how to perform a baseline sort and measurement of the food in the trash. By conducting a food waste assessment, you can discover the amount of food that could have been diverted for donation and composting. You might also discover why the food was being thrown away in the first place. We have a variety of other food waste tracking and recovery tools available at epa.gov/foodscraps/tools. This new guide, posted in 2015 on EPA's schools website, provides K-12 schools with information on how to prevent wasted food and find a local food pantry. The two-page guide also provides USDA Food and Nutrition Service guidance on offer versus serve and surplus food donation. That's a picture of me in school. If you want to be part of a national network of organizations striving to prevent, reduce, and recover wasted food, participate in the Food Recovery Challenge. The Food Recovery Challenge, or FRC for short, is a free EPA partnership with various learning tools that helps organizations achieve their food recovery goals. Participants in the FRC set goals to recover food and actively measure and reduce their wasted food while improving their bottom line. Endorsers promote sustainable food management by educating organizations about the socioeconomic and environmental benefits of food recovery. Both participants and endorsers have access to our password-protected database for tracking and measuring their progress in food recovery. 790 entities currently participate in the FRC, along with small fry like Disneyland, the National Hockey League, and Nestle. We have big wigs in the FRC, including Ramona High School in California, Kansas City Public Schools, and the Food Bus. Any organization can join, including government, schools, nonprofits, and private enterprise. In 2013, FRC participants reported diverting more than 370,000 tons of wasted food to food recovery. Of this total, they donated 36,000 tons of surplus food to feed hungry people. That's equal to 56 million meals. For the home, the Food Too Good to Waste Toolkit helps to prevent household food waste. It includes an implementation guide for communities, a message map to help effectively campaign across organizations or jurisdictions, and many behavior change and outreach tools, such as a home-based food recovery measurement tool. The pilot results of Food Too Good to Waste have shown that a family of 4 can save around $1,600 a year while reducing their wasted food by 25%. You can access this free tool at westcoastclimateforum.com/food. So in conclusion, you can start recovering food now by tracking your school's wasted food, donating surplus food from your school, and getting the support, recognition, and resources you need by participating in EPA's Food Recovery Challenge. For more information on everything I've talked about, go to epa.gov/foodrecovery. Now on to our next speaker.
Andre, thank you very much. Andre given us a nice introduction to the work EPA has been doing and why this is important. So with that, we do have another poll coming up that we'd like you to participate in. It's a little bit of a tag on to what you've been asked the first time. If your school's not currently donating surplus food, why? You don't know how to find a food bank, there's liability concern, or you don't have the resources. So please give us a hint on what the issue is. And while that's tabulating results, we will gear up for the next presentation. So with that, we are going to turn over the presentation to, excellent. So sorry, I'm just reading the poll results. Concerned about liability, we'll definitely talk about that in Jimmy's presentation. I understand the resources question completely, and I'm not sure we have any control over that besides giving you tools and some technical assistance, so please feel free to reach out to us. And food banks are easy to find. Good to know. So with that, let's turn over to our speaker, Gloria Quinn. Gloria Quinn is a special educator at Ramona High School in Ramona, California, and she teaches functional skills trainings through grade 9 through 12. Gloria is one of our Food Recovery Challenge partners, and while we're queuing up Gloria's slides, we welcome her and the work that she's been doing. So thank you, Gloria. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much. I'm wondering if the slides are showing. I can't tell from here.
No, it's not. You should have gotten something that I made you a presenter and show my screen.
Perfect.
There you go. Perfect.
Thank you very much. And here we go. Sorry about that. Yes, I am Gloria Quinn, and I am a special education teacher, and I work with students with moderate disabilities. And I come from a little bit of a different perspective, working in the school district. We have a program in place. It's fairly new, just in the last few years. We have a composting program and a food donation program. Oh, no. Do not. I'm sorry. And we also follow the hierarchy In our partnership, we are diverting the organics from the landfill and feeding people first. We then feed animals, and then we compost our food discards. What's really important to me is that our students are involved in the process, and we're growing a culture of sustainability. We began the program in November of 2013, starting with our food donations, and then we started composting the following February. Our composting program, we are using an earth tub, and it can handle up to 50 pounds per day. That's where we utilize, where we place our food scraps that the district produces. In our first month, we placed over 1,100 pounds into the earth tub, and in the first year, there were 10,000 pounds that we were able to compost. And here you see actually one of our students and our mentor and trainer, Rich, who helped us develop the entire program. On the right, that is our finished product. When we started the program, we set up a system, and in trying to make everything easier for everyone, we placed visuals right on top of the lids of the buckets, showing what food scraps can go into each of the buckets for composting. Later, we ended up separating that between the food for animals and for composting. At each school kitchen, we actually have 8 schools that are participating. At each kitchen, they divide those for us, and then it's a very easy process for our students. The students are involved in this partnership with our staff, and I think that that's really critical for our school districts to include our students in this process. When they become invested, that's really, I think, the hope for our change and for sustainability. What we see here are pictures of the product that's coming out of our kitchens. You can see it looks like it's perfectly edible, but of course we can't serve that to students once it's gone out from our kitchens. On the right, that's the auger that is composting in the earth tub. In our food and nutrition services, we have our amazing staff. Like I said, they separate for us, but also the entree items that are no longer servable to students, they are placed into our freezers. And once they're frozen, they're picked up weekly by another partner in our community, and that's Ramona Food and Clothes Closet. They do an amazing thing in our community by feeding our community members that are in need of support. Let's see, I'm going to go ahead and go to the next slide. When we have our volunteers who are transferring our food, it goes out immediately, and you can see that we have community members who are ready to accept a chicken sandwich or that barbecue. And the gentleman on the right, he was there the first day of the school year saying, I've been waiting for this all summer. In our first year, we had almost 2,800 pounds, and that equated to just over 2,300 meals that we were able to provide to our community members. Whoops. Oh no, I went a little too far. Our leftover food goes to 2 different places. They go to our animals and to our compost. We had 2,300 pounds that were fed to animals, and we've been able to recover about 12 cubic yards of compost. So what happens to the compost? Well, we have a school garden. It's the dog patch garden because we are the Bulldogs. And my same students who are working in the compost program and the food recovery program keep our school garden. So they then grow food, and that food is also, our portion of the food is also donated to our food and clothes closet. They also are utilizing the food to learn about nutrition. They're cooking with that, and they're learning more about health. and they've been able to grow 4 different kinds of lettuces and chard, and you can see beautiful tomatoes. They've had several varieties of heirloom and organic fruits and vegetables that they've never known about before. You can see on the top that I have my vision statement, really, that is sort of abbreviated, that's for my classroom, and it's connectedness, independence, and purpose. And I firmly believe that this is something that we need for all of our students, that they need to be connected to our community, to our staff, to our schools. They need to have a sense of purpose. And when I see my students who are participating in this program, I see that connectedness across all elements of this program. When they know that they're saving the world, and that's actually what we say every day, let's go save the world, they have a purpose, and they find that there's a new element that I've never seen in them before, and I see them working towards independence as they're learning a new vocation. These are authentic learning experiences that are addressing educational needs. We're looking at common core concepts. We're looking at measurement, weight, and temperature. One real surprise is that I've seen increased strength and vitality in my students. You can see that they're learning how to use a scale. They're using thermometers. They're also entering data into an iPad, and that information is sent daily electronically, so they're using technology. They're also developing career readiness skills. In California, we have standards for career readiness, and my students are addressing all elements in every single one of these standards, especially our technical skills, effective communication, use of technology and problem solving, becoming a responsible citizen, and working productively in teams. So, when we're looking at replicating a program like this, which I think can be done at every school site, it's not going to be done the same way for everyone, but I think it should be done. And the way that we did it, we received a phone call from our friend Rich Flammer of Hidden Resources. He was the consultant with the County of San Diego who approached us. And he said that there was an earth tub that was available. And after many conversations about how this would work and how it would benefit students, we received district approval, and then we assembled a planning team. And that was really key. When we had our team that all agreed that this was beneficial, we didn't have any no's. We didn't have anyone say no. Everyone said yes. That was really key to success. Then we established our baselines, and we established our procedures. We established baselines because we needed to start seeing if there were going to be patterns. What ended up resulting what we ended up seeing is that we saw that there was waste that was occurring, and the pattern was too much food was being presented to students at once. So our kitchens were able to reduce that amount, and we were able to see a drop in waste just by changing that simple protocol. We saw a drop in waste by an average of 270 pounds per month, and that was over a 6-month period. And that was after 4 months of seeing data. After we established those baselines, after we had set up our procedures, we coordinated with our local food pantry, we set up our site, we had to make sure that we had all the elements in place, and then we also partnered with our agricultural department, and that's when the animals started to receive their goodies, and they come running every time they see those white buckets. And we also have partners on campus with our NJROTC and our journalism department, and it's really been wonderful to see that connectedness on our campus. So we are part of the Food Recovery Challenge. I love that we are part of the bigger picture. I love that we're the first district in California and the fourth in the nation to participate. I'm really hoping that we have a whole lot more on board and that we get to be part of a much larger group that is saving the world every day. So why? Who benefits? Well, the students, really all learners, all kinds of learners can benefit from your AP students all the way to your children with special needs. Our educators in all subjects will benefit. You have your core standards, you have your data analysis, you have your report writing, environmental issues, global health. There's really nothing that is eliminated in this arena. Your staff benefits, everyone is connected towards a common goal. Your district benefits, they have a reduced cost. In California, with AB 1826, you're going to be in compliance with the law. You have less food waste, you have less trash in your dumpster, you're going to reduce your feed bill in an agricultural department. In our situation, we've cut our feed bill for sheep and chickens to half. You're going to get free mulch on your campus, which is what we've been able to do, and you're going to utilize your wood chips and grass clippings from what your maintenance department's been able to do. And in the community, you're going to feed the hungry, you're going to have an outreach. In your businesses, you're developing a model and a partnership. And then our future becomes more sustainable. My hope for today is that our schools will join in making a systemic change in food recovery. We all value community and want solutions. I'm very passionate about empowering students and being a part of this and creating a sustainable future. When we see 1 in 4 Ramona children who are being food insecure, our statistics are a little bit higher. I think it's essential that we all become a part of this. Thank you very much.
Kathleen, thank you so much. And I think Kathleen hit on one thing that I'd really like to shout out to her and to her whole organization, is that you need champions to make this happen within your school. And it sounded like she had more than one. So Kathleen, that's a lesson I'd like to take away. The other lesson I think that you were brilliant on is the measurement. And we had quite a few questions about the comments that you made, that once you started measuring, the food was too much for the students. So what I'm gleaning is that they went up the chain and did some source reduction and change how they served meals to the students. So could you elaborate a little bit on that?
I'm sorry, could you repeat exactly what your question?
So when you were talking about measurement, you mentioned too much food was being presented to the students. So did you reduce portion size, selection? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, that's correct. So we have salad bars that are presented, especially to our elementary school students. And when the staff was presenting that amount, we were finding that we were having too much. Once it's presented, it cannot be presented again. So too much was coming back. So they started to reduce that amount. And by doing that, and then just monitoring that more carefully, we were able to reduce the amount of waste. And that was across the board. Just by doing that at all of our schools, we were able to see that reduction.
Excellent. So you're talking about the salad bars in particular. The other thing we had is the food that you are donating to the food pantry. Can you talk about what that is? And I know we have to be very careful about it's not food waste. It's just wasted food. And can you just talk about what that actually is and what goes to the food pantry?
Absolutely. So we have wrapped food and packaged food that doesn't go out and is not presented to students, that hasn't been touched. And once it reaches a certain temperature, it cannot be presented to students once again. So that is what is then frozen. There's nothing wrong with this food. It is perfectly edible, but according to codes, we just simply can't present it to students. So we're looking at pizza and sandwiches and rice bowls and really fine, delicious foods that would otherwise go into the trash and has in the past. So it's just marvelous that this is not occurring any longer. They go straight into the freezer. When they are held in the freezer for no longer than a week, they accumulate for a week. Those amounts are then held in boxes and then transferred over to the food and clothes closet. They have their food license there, so they're handling according to standards and then distribute it to the people there.
Great. Kathleen, excuse me, Gloria, I do think that you're a little unique in the fact that you have animals on your campus. You're doing the actual composting on your campus with an earth tub. Can you give us the size of your campus, how many students, quote unquote, one earth tub is servicing?
Certainly. Well, actually, our earth tub is taking care of all of the food waste for the entire district. Okay. But on our campus, we have 1,700 students. So all of our schools are accumulating the kitchen waste, and they are being transported to our school site, but there isn't an additional transport. They aren't being driven, oh gosh, how do I phrase that? We're not wasting gas and getting it over there. They're already in the same route as our food services route that they're already taking. So when they arrive, they are then put into the refrigerators in order to be kept cool, and then they are taken out of the refrigerator for collection when my students arrive. So the food waste from all 8 schools is then put into our composter, and it handles everything for the district.
And do you know the number of students off the top of your head?
Well, for our school site, we have 1,700. For our district, we're at 4,700.
Okay, perfect. That was a question that we've had. We have quite a few questions, Gloria, about liability, and I think maybe I'll hold those off until Jimmy speaks, because we do know that there are a lot of concerns, real or not real, about liability, but I'll hold off on those. Someone asked the question, what is Gloria? Gloria is a teacher within the school. Sorry, I just thought that was funny. And you are a special needs teacher in the high school level, so thank you for that. So I think, Gloria, again, kudos for what you're doing. Thank you for your passion. It came through, and we appreciate your time and effort and energies in joining us today. So thank you so much. With that, it's time to move on to our next speaker. And our next speaker is going to be Catherine Wheel, who is the founder and executive director of the Food Bus, a nonprofit organization that helps K-12 schools recover surplus food that is then donated to food banks. So another piece in the cog of the puzzle of making this work. So Kathleen, with that.
Hi, thank you. Thank you so much, Christine and Andre, for including me in this webinar. I'm very honored to be here with you all and excited to hear about what other people are doing across the country to help stop wasting food, perfectly good food that could go to feed hungry people across the country. So again, I'm Kathleen Weil, and I founded a nonprofit called Food Bus in May of 2012 because I was at a cafeteria with one of my daughters and saw how much food was being thrown out, and I sort of couldn't believe my eyes. And I had a conversation with the principal of that school and asked if we could take it to a pantry. And initially he didn't want us to. He wanted me to do some background work and figure out a pantry, and I got all that set up. And fortunately, this principal had done some work in hunger relief already, so he wasn't too worried about legal issues. He knew the terrain, and we moved ahead. Well, Food Bus it's not actually a bus. A lot of people think that we have a bus that drives around, but it's an idea. It's hope. We are taking unused food to pantries, and we use the image of a bus because we're in schools. We're in a lot of elementary schools across the country, and we are taking a lot of perishables that in lower income areas or less well-resourced areas people are not getting. And this is a photo from our very first trial week of implementing a food recovery program in an elementary school. This was without any planning, without any education of the children or the staff. The kids just took to it right away. I have found in every school that I've worked with that the children are much, much happier having a way to donate the food, and they don't like throwing it out. They actually know, I think there's a natural instinct to not throw it out, but they had no option in the schools that we have gone into and set it up. Now that they know that if they don't want something, they can save it, they are using it for opportunities to log community service hours and to hold fundraisers and things like that also. So our mission is to recover unused food from elementary schools, get it to pantries that are in need of perishables. We're strengthening communities by making them more connected. The schools that we're with are now aware of pantries that once they may not have been. The pantries are more aware of the schools, and I have sometimes people from the pantry come to the schools to meet the principal or the PTA president, or the other way around, just to put faces to names. And I think probably the most important thing we do, well, it's as important, I think, as getting the food to the hungry people, is teaching children across the country how they can make a difference. Even as a child, a 5-year-old kindergartner can help another kid or family who's hungry just by not throwing out their milk and putting it in the refrigerator that we provide to the school for someone else to have. And the pride I see in these children as they take over the program and figure out how they want it to run in their school makes me happy every time I set one up. So we work directly with school systems to strategize and set up their food recovery program in the cafeterias, and then we stay committed to be involved and maintain programs, provide consultation as issues come up. We resolve if there's anything between the pantry and the school that needs some readjusting, we do that, and we help figure out their distribution and set up their volunteer lists for people to take the food from the schools to the pantries. Well, according to the USDA, it's actually I thought it was 1 out of 6 Americans. This is a new number. I've been using 1 out of 6, but it's sort of distressing to see that it's 1 out of 7 now, and 1 out of 5 of these is children. Live in food insecure households, meaning they're not sure where their next meal is going to come. And I think that people are unaware that there can be children and families in their own neighborhoods who are not getting enough food, or that the parents are working 2 and 3 jobs and not eating so that they can get food to their kids. And I'm actually referring to the picture that Andre put up of the I don't know if that was the Rose Bowl, but Jonathan Bloom in his book American Wasteland talks about how Americans throw out enough food each day to fill the Rose Bowl. And when I read his book and got that image in my head, I could not let go of it. I could not let go of that. It was just astonishing to me. And then the fruits and vegetables make up a huge portion of food waste. And typically, if you look at a food drive flyer or something like that, they're asking for non-perishables, for canned food, because that's, well, one thing is that's sort of the easiest things for people to give, and they can store it for a longer term of time. When we are in the cafeterias around the country, we're finding this the same thing, that it's fruits and vegetables, it's milk and cheese, it's perishables that are getting thrown out. So we will buy refrigerators for the schools to place in their cafeteria. It can't be back in the kitchen area. And then we work out a system for the food to be placed in the refrigerator so that there's no question with the health department about temperature. And then these perishables, which are quite valuable, are taken directly to food pantries that are local, they're in the community, normally about 10 minutes away. So the logistics of how we work are pretty simple. The food is saved at the schools. We're taking advantage of the infrastructure the schools already have in place with, first of all, the food being there. PTAs normally have community service positions, and we always talk with that person and the PTA president to try and have them involved so that when the parent who may be coordinating the program in a given school leaves because their kids are aging out, there's already someone in the pipeline to take that over. And we've already demonstrated that we can transition that way seamlessly and keep the program alive. Even as the coordinator moves out, there's a new one already there. So the food is saved and kept for a week at the school in a food bus refrigerator, and we are a nonprofit, so that the food is technically being donated to us, a nonprofit, which food that is coming from a school has to be sent to a nonprofit. And then a volunteer delivers the food to a selected pantry once a week. And we have found this to be a really simple and efficient system. We've talked once or twice about going to twice a week in bigger schools, but when we put up a Sign Up Genius list, this is a free web-based volunteer form that we need people on Fridays, maybe between 1 and 2, to take the food to a pantry. It gets filled very quickly for the year, and we just want to keep the momentum there. And then a parent comes in, sometimes they bring their kids who help unload the refrigerators, and people from the school put in recyclable bags, and we just use those and take it directly to the pantries. Normally the day before there's going to be a distribution, and then the next morning everything is gone. These perishables get snapped up right away. We've worked hard about figuring out what kind of foods are acceptable. In our early days, we were taking hamburgers and meat burritos to the pantries, and the pantries loved it. They really loved getting those proteins. But in working with county-level food and nutrition people, for now at least, it makes sense to just we're doing prepackaged items that are either saran wrapped or in containers, and it's mostly salads, fruits, vegetables, and milk. And if it's a prepared package, prepackaged meat, we'll take it, but no more hamburgers off the food line or anything like that. Because we're in our initial pilot run, we found that everything that we collected was perishable, nearly, I would say, 98% of it. We realized we had to find a way to refrigerate the food for the week while it was being collected. So we provide an energy-efficient refrigerator free of charge to any school that needs one. Because of county regulations across the country, the refrigerator has to be located away from the general food service area activity and cannot contain food that is for current school use. It can only be the food that has been collected to take to the pantry. And each school sets it up differently. We don't walk in and say this is how it's going to work. In our meetings with the usually student council person and the principal and the PTA, we ask them how they'd like to see it work. And we buy baskets for the students to collect the food if that's how they want to go. One school has a older student that will, at the end of lunch periods, roll a cart through it, and the kids just put on what they're not going to eat. Or simply a basket is placed on a table for a pile of stuff that's not going to get eaten, and a student has an assignment to put it in the refrigerator at the end of lunch period. Sometimes there's a cafeteria worker who's so excited finally to see the food being saved that they'll take that part and take it into the refrigerator. So it's after the final lunch period, everything is immediately refrigerated, so it's not left out to warm up for any length of time. And in working with schools, the cafeteria workers are people often who it's a second job for them, and they've known hunger in their life and have been dismayed for many years seeing how much is thrown out, and they're the ones that have to throw it out. And so many people I've talked with have known hunger or have had relatives that know hunger and are very, very happy that this is moving in this direction, that schools are doing this. And in cafeteria where a food manager has experienced hunger, I am telling you, nothing gets by them. Nothing anymore. It's all put directly into the food bus fridge. We will make materials for schools if they would like them or if they think that they would help with the process. This is from Kent Gardens in Virginia. A woman named Rachel Simon was instrumental in getting this program up and running, and she, sometimes we have some resistance from a principal or from a county level person, and Rachel didn't give up. She kept sort of at it, and after a year and a half, we got the okay to move ahead. And the schools themselves, within the guidelines of the district, have the leeway to decide what they want to take or what not, or what they don't want to take. This I put up because this is in general across one of the counties we work with, what is okay to take to a local food bank. And the particular food bank that this food goes to got so full that we had to create backup systems for the food to be redistributed. And so we created a model where we can have a pantry right in the school, and in a confidential way it's given to families that are in need. We also have a system where the food can be added to the power packs, the backpacks that go home with kids that don't have enough food, and they never get perishables, so that the perishables can go in there. And then we are going to partner schools from more well-resourced areas to less well-resourced areas and get the excess food over to them. But across the board, it's been pretty clear that the counties across this country are pretty nervous about meat products and hot food. Whole apples are a problem in some districts and not in others because oftentimes the officials are worried about cross-contamination. But as one person, a principal who has worked in hunger relief, told me, so now they have to go into a trash can and get the apple out instead of getting it from the school. But I think as people get more used to doing this, the guidelines are going to probably get a little more relaxed. So this is just an image which is sort of blurry, but we spend a lot of time teaching students about the process, where the food is going to go, and how they're helping. And Gloria said something that I have seen too, is you see the pride in these kids' faces. Their eyes shine. They are very, very happy to be helping other human beings. And it's an opportunity to introduce the idea of social justice and being aware of who's in your community. And at some schools, these are kids that if they gave away a cheese stick or a milk, as soon as they get home, they can get another one. But we are very, very clear when we do our teaching sessions that they need to eat their food that either the parents or a provider packed for them or they bought at the school to fill up their tummy. Their brains need it for learning, their bodies need it for energy, only to throw out what they would not be eating. And in the schools that we've set up, there's sort of an initial bump of excitement, and they do tend to give a little bit too much or of what they may have eaten, but very quickly, I mean within a week or two, it evens out, and the students are really only donating what would be thrown out. And it's a lot of food. In the school that we did our pilot in their first year, that one school, Chesterbrook Elementary School in McLean, Virginia, saved 5,000 pounds of food. And that was the pilot year for that school. So we are very careful to teach the children and answer any questions from parents about where the food is going and how to make sure that kids are not giving away food that actually they need to eat for their for their health and their nutrition. At the receiving end of the food we collect, we initially ask the schools where they would like it to go. If they have a pantry in mind, if they don't have a pantry in mind, we work to find them one as close as possible, because the only time the food is unrefrigerated is when it's taken from the refrigerator on a Friday to the pantry, and normally that's not a distance any longer than taking food from a grocery store to your home. So we're very careful about that. And as I had mentioned, we either find a food pantry or we use the perishables to supplement the in-house Power Pack programs, or we donate it directly to families in the school, and we're looking for schools to partner. We could donate to homeless shelters or other social service organizations, and we've done that occasionally, but right now the school to pantry, school to Power Pack, and school to directly families in their school with the pantry has worked very, very, very well. This is a picture of a incredibly energetic, wonderful woman, Rhonda, who set up a program in Arizona with Food Bus. She went through so many hoops, with unnecessary hoops they put her through with the legislative concerns, the legal concerns, and she didn't give up. She worked at it and worked at it, and this is what they collected on their very first trial day. And this is just a picture of Rhonda taking it to a local food pantry in Arizona. And she just stayed committed to the idea. She found us through Google, I think, and it really was a pleasure to work with. So there's a lot of ways that recovering food in schools helps, because obviously it helps feed hungry people. It helps reduce the dumping fees for school districts in their waste management, because they're not taking, just in that pilot year I mentioned for the one school, 5,000 pounds. That's 5,000 pounds of food the school didn't have to pay to get hauled, and it's 5,000 pounds that didn't end up in a landfill somewhere in the United States, emitting then methane gas over the next 20 years. And then it also, as another branch of what we're doing, it provides this opportunity to reach children and teach them the importance of reducing solid waste and protecting our environment and helping those in need. So it's also helping reduce the greenhouse gas emissions, specifically methane. So every pound of food, the best thing you can do with food is eat it, instead of letting it sit in a landfill where it's going to emit methane. And you know, if it's not a landfill that's properly ventilated, then that can be a big, big problem. So this is just a slide to show we're working across the country. This is a school in California. We've set up 5 schools in California, but this is from SOAR Charter Academy in San Bernardino. They were also a pleasure to work with. And she found us because a school in North Carolina got started, and she saw a post that we had put up on our Facebook page and wondered if it would be possible to get them up and running. And they did. And this school actually is using the hot items, but they keep it in their cafeteria back serving area, and the kids who need a meal before they go home simply come to the cafeteria and eat the hot food right there. So they had a different banner made because they had different guidelines they wanted instituted within their school. And then the other 4 schools we've got in California are in the Palmdale School District, and we partnered with them and got them their refrigerators just this summer, so we'll see how that goes with them. Everybody has talked about that and is wondering about the legal issues, so I won't go into it, but this Bill Emerson Good Samaritan Food Donation Act has been on the books for a long, long time and protects organizations and individuals who donate unused food to the hungry. Every state, I've looked into the state laws, have laws to protect people who donate, Good Samaritan laws, and also Food Bus is a 501c3, and if there's any liability in the schools we're involved with, which really there's not, it would fall on us as an organization. And Representative Wolf a couple of years ago also passed another federal legislation to specifically encourage foods to donate to schools. And the USDA has said for a long time that they would like to see food donated to schools instead of being thrown out. But there's a lot of fear about liability and legal issues across the country related to donating food. Well, we think that it works well and seamlessly because of, first of all, the supplies we provide to the schools. Everyone bumps up against needing a refrigerator, and I don't think there's a school I've talked with in the country that has extra resources, really. So that's the first thing we do. We get the supplies in place, and this is a school, a wonderful school that called Lemon Road that actually set up the pantry right in their school, and has their school counselor knows who the families are that are in need, and they bag the food at the end of the week, and the families just come on Friday, take a bag from the fridge, and the food is then taken to their home instead of being thrown out. Sometimes people need a cart or whiteboards or extra baskets. We provide scales because really the only thing we ask back of the schools is one, a picture so that we can see who they are and put faces to names. And the other is we like to collect the weights of how much food is being donated each week. And I had been collecting reports from schools earlier on about once a quarter, but now we just ask for it at the end of the school year. And that way we can just have a tally and a database on how much food is being donated instead of thrown into the landfill. It works because we invest a lot of time into the public education. I get asked probably the same 10 to 12 questions over and over about legal issues and how will this work and how to troubleshoot it and how about long-term involvement and funding. And I just spend the time up front with the schools and the administrators and anyone they want me to talk to so that they're clear about what they're getting into. And then I really think basically in the end it works because of the kids in the schools, because they take it over in the cafeterias. The student councils sometimes take it over, green teams in schools take it over. Older students like to be responsible for monitoring the fridge and getting the food in. And the children now keep an eye out for stuff that wouldn't be eaten, and I see kids going around and picking up stuff that's just left on the table, a packaged cheese stick or a salad, and taking it themselves to the refrigerator so that it doesn't get thrown out. This is from a school in North Carolina, Liberty, North Carolina, and this school, another pleasure. The dad, the guy on the far left, is the one that called me. He had been sitting with his child at lunch and noticed how much food was being wasted. And he and some other people had done some hunger relief work, so he just couldn't bear to keep throwing the food away. And he found us, I think, through Google. We do have a contact sheet on our website. And he found a pantry to work with. The PTA president is the lady here, and the principal is in red. And this is a minister on the far right. All just came together as a team and got it up and running very, very quickly. And I think this is a way we can strengthen communities as a just side benefit of the work we're doing with schools, bringing all these different people together and doing service to those in need. The students at schools that we've been involved with have come up with fundraising ideas. This was a fundraiser that a student came up with on her own and raised enough money for us to get a website started, and had great support from the students and from the principal in the school. They were allowed to set up a bracelet booth next to the book fair flyers that were sent out for that day, and the bracelets went like gangbusters. This is just a visual image. The far left, the Calling All Eagles picture, is this people from the San Bernardino school. The woman with the blonde hair is the principal of the school, a director of the school, and Then to the far right is the mother who sort of coordinated the pickup and delivery of the food from that school. So connecting the food to the schools, the homes, the children, the pantry creates a circle of interaction that I think is making a big difference in hungry people's lives and really in the school children who are donating. And I think this generation, it'll be just sort of what recycling is now. It's just the norm. So the schools are involved, again, with fundraising. Some green teams organize videos to show their schools. They have announcements in the morning explaining what we're doing. Parents are transporting the food. Teachers remind the students about donating instead of wasting. And so the school is involved at all the levels, from administration to the kids. This is a poster a student out in Bellevue, Washington made that was a really interesting school to set up because they translated all of our materials into Spanish, and that was very fun to see. And this is just a food donation receipt because in local schools we can get the donation receipt back to the schools just so they can see how much they took in a given day and where it went, and that it's a real process that they're involved in. The EPA is in the front of all this. They've got the Food Recovery Challenge, and Food Bus is part of the Food Recovery Challenge, and we're also listed as an endorsing organization with the EPA. And then we're also actively working with Region 10, and I just pasted a post from their Facebook page about their efforts to reduce food waste, and they're in a school, Puesta del Sol, because we partnered with them to set that school up for food recovery, and they're up and running and have already made a huge difference in their community. This is their poster in Spanish, and I loved seeing this, and I hope that we'll be doing more of these in other languages too, where there are populations that need to see the information in a different language, and I certainly know of other schools that will be able to use this. But this was EPA Region 10, and they actually translated all the food bus materials as part of our partnership into Spanish, which was hugely helpful. This is just an example of other information we give the schools to keep on hand. We make weight charts for them. I look at the county holiday schedules and try and take a little bit of the work off the coordinator in the school if possible. And then we leave with them our toolkit and promise to stay involved with them and re-engineer the program if any need comes up over the course of a year or years. Help them choose which way they want to direct the food and where they want to put the fridge. And in every school I've been involved with, there's concern about adding a refrigerator into cafeteria space because the cafeteria spaces are so tight. But the refrigerators fit. They're not that big a deal.
Kathleen?
There are some issues with recovering food in schools. There's hyper-local decision-making regarding if it's even possible, and this is at the county food and nutrition level. And if I can get to the county food and nutrition director, usually I can get a program across the county, but there is this big fear about liability. There's a lack of knowledge of laws that are in place to protect, and then there are funding and volunteer issues related to collecting and distributing the food. So our solutions include, we're working on developing a web-based educational tool to answer all the questions about recovery and food in schools. We are hoping to help craft a national policy for nutrition directors to look at so that they can see this is okay and how to follow the process, and then how to speed up the process of food recovery in schools by using social media to diffuse the information that's out there. We're connecting with leaders across the country. The gentleman in this picture is Jay Fazette. He's chair of the Arlington County Board. And across Arlington County, we got permission to get the schools up and running. We are consulting with schools on a state-by-state basis to establish at least small localized spots of community-led efforts that can spread. And then we've been partnering with USDA and EPA, sharing information, ideas, and results with the government leaders, and they've been providing us with plenty of information and support too. And I really, yes.
Hi, we're just running a little low of time.
Oops, okay. Okay.
To wrap up, and I have many questions for you.
Okay, so this is just that I am convinced that we're making a generational shift in how children are seeing what they can do with food, and that it won't be the norm to throw it out anymore. This is a school-wide photo that a school did after we started food recovery in their school, showing the pounds that they saved over the months of the school year. This is just where people can learn more. The gentleman in this photo is Jonathan Bloom, who has a book, which I have a picture of, that taught me everything almost I know about food recovery. If you want more information about Food Bus, this was an article in a recent Parent magazine that they put up about us. This is an old paper, but it tells you a lot of what you need to know. This is a really old paper from, I think, the late 90s, but also has amazing information in it. And then this is the study that I had referenced that was 1 in 6 households is food insecure, and 1 in 6 of those is children. This is the book Jonathan Bloom wrote. If you want to learn anything about wasted food, this is the book to read. And then if you're interested in starting a food recovery program in your school, here's some contact information. Go in for lunch with your kid one day and see how much is thrown out. That is the best advice I can give you. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathleen. We have so many questions and so many comments and praising for your work. The first thing folks really want to know is, how are you funded, and how do you fund those refrigerators?
We write grants. We get local community grants, and we have a donation page, and we hold holiday fundraisers, and students do little fundraisers, and every single penny counts. I mean, we had 2 little girls who are the daughters of the board of director, and they raised $55 just by a little lemonade stand, and that'll buy a couple of baskets for a local school. We are trying to get access to either Walmart or Sears or a place like that to see if we can get reduced costs on the refrigerators we buy. So we use our funding to buy the refrigerators and the supplies for the schools.
Great. The last question we've had quite a spin on is food service directors don't want to admit there's wasted food. And just the general perception of them not doing their jobs properly. And then I had the flip side, is folks, I don't want to measure because I want to donate the food. So can you speak a little bit to that?
Yeah, so actually some of the counties have specific paperwork that they developed to be very specific about what's getting thrown out, but they, in the end, don't really want all that. I'm not being asked by counties to get back to them about poundage or anything, and I think, I think in general we need an overhaul of looking at those systems in the food and nutrition departments, because things have changed in 30 years, and but we don't get into the politics of trying to look at the farm bill or the vendor for the school and who's getting what. There's just so much food being thrown out. I think everybody I've talked to, nutrition directors included, is on board with donating the food instead of throwing it out. Great.
So with that, Kathleen, we have many more questions, but I want to give time to our last speaker, Jimmy, who is joining us from the USDA. And many of you have put in questions about liability. So, Jimmy, I want to just highlight that that's been a prevalent question throughout the chatting. So keep that in mind, and the rules around what can be donated legally through a school program. So with that, Jimmy, please start your presentation.
Okay, thank you, everyone, and it's very exciting to be here. I feel that everyone on this webinar is going to be part of a great movement to start reducing, recovering, and recycling food waste. And as the former mayor of New York City said, Mayor Bloomberg, he said that food waste is the last recycling frontier. We recycle almost every other thing that we can think of, and we keep it out of landfills, but food waste. And hopefully we can start thinking about food waste as something that we want to keep from landfills. And I know a lot of you have already seen these statistics, and they vary from organization to organization, but the USDA says that 31% food from U.S. retail food stores, restaurants, and homes goes uneaten, equals about 133 billion pounds. And we like to go with this fun little comparison of how much food is wasted every year. We say that enough food is wasted every year to fill up 44 Willis Towers, formerly Sears Towers. And when Agriculture Secretary Vilsack was in New York City to announce the new food waste reduction goals, we did the calculations and came up with 78 Empire State Buildings that food waste would fill up every year. So just think about it like this. Every year we're just creating cities of food waste that we just can't afford to. And as Andre mentioned, all of the resources that went into producing the food in the first place, only to then use more resources to deliver it to a landfill where it sits there and causes more damage, is just not a very effective way to use all of these resources, not to mention all of the habitat that is destroyed by having to open up new farmland to feed more people. And obviously we're at an unprecedented rate of extinction among our floral fauna and fungal sources, and so if we can just do our part to reduce food waste in our homes and in our schools, then I think our communities will be better off. And as Christine mentioned, Agriculture Secretary Vilsack and the EPA announced that the U.S. would reduce food waste by 50% by the year 2030, and it specifically said that in his announcement, he specifically said that the USDA will work with organizations, businesses in the private sector, and local governments, state governments, to reduce food loss and waste. I work for the Food and Nutrition Service, which oversees the National School Lunch Program, School Breakfast Program, after-school feeding programs, as well as the Summer Food Service Program. So in my role, I will try to work with schools to make sure that we reach these targets. And every day I get a question or a call, an email or a phone call from a school wanting to know more about reducing or recovering or recycling food waste, and I welcome those conversations, and it always gets me excited when I get those emails and calls. Okay, so why food recovery? You probably already know this: reduce food insecurity and also mitigate climate change and conserve resources. Here's some more stats. And some people incorrectly believe that if food goes to a landfill, it doesn't do any damage, but when it goes to landfill, it begins to rot and then generates methane, or methane, as our British counterparts would say, which is a greenhouse gas that is over 20 times more potent than carbon dioxide. And food is the single largest component going into municipal landfills. So as we said, the announcement to reduce food waste by 50%, we're going to be looking at how much solid food waste is going into landfills and analyzing that number to see if we have reached those targets. And that's one way to do it, is to see how much food waste is still going into landfills by 2030. And if it's reduced by 50%, then we'll say that we reached those targets. Why recover and donate food? Obviously, Kathleen and others have mentioned that a lot of American households are food insecure. And as Andre already showed you, the food recovery hierarchy is very important. When you're a school, you have to kind of work through the best ways to reduce food waste. And the best way is to reduce it at the source. And there's different ways you can get the students to actually consume the food through different techniques and strategies. Say you could have recess before lunch so that the students can work up an appetite and consume the food, or extend the lunch period by 10, 20, 30 minutes so that the students can actually have time to eat their food and also socialize as they are accustomed to doing during the lunch period. Or even giving the students some time before their lunch period to review the lunch menu to actually make an informed decision about what they will actually take when they go through that lunch line, instead of just being hurried through the lunch line and just taking whatever they can grab. And then after you do those things, and there's also the Smarter Lunchrooms movement techniques that you can do that affect the behavior of the students when they select food. So renaming food like Iron Man spinach or X-ray carrots to entice students to make those healthy choices, and then also to consume them, or putting fruits in a nice fruit bowl instead of a stainless steel pan, and presenting food better will actually have an effect on how much the students actually consume. And then after you do all of that, you can get into the recovery portion, which this webinar is about. And recovery also helps with helping schools reduce food waste. As I was talking to a school nutrition director in Madison, Indiana, named Lindsay Hill, she said that they recovered a ton of string cheese every week, and they donated to a local food pantry. And then finally a light bulb went off, and she said, why am I still buying string cheese if no one's eating it? So recovering food will help you also analyze what foods the students are not eating, and so you can make menu changes to help reduce food waste. So recovering and donating food waste can be a reduction goal, or a reduction strategy. Okay, recovering food waste. Let me delve a little bit into the Bill Emerson Good Samaritan Act. You can call it the Good Sam Act for short if you want to say those 4 long words, but it was passed in 1996, and it is such a strong law, and it offers broad liability protection to anybody that donates food or receives the food. And the University of Arkansas School of Law actually has this great guide called the Legal Guide to Food Recovery, and it's also linked in my PowerPoint presentation, which I believe you can download or access it through email after this webinar. But take a look at the legal guide and accustom yourself to, just study that act, so that if you want to start a food recovery program in your school, you'll be able to explain to the local health department or your school district the liability protection that is offered to your school. And the University of Arkansas actually did a study and researched court filings or court decisions that tried to overturn this liability protection, and they found nothing. So really there has not been any organization that has tried to challenge this liability protection offered by the Good Sam Act. And if you think about it logically, no food pantry or soup kitchen is going to turn around and sue you, the school, for donating food to them, because it would set a bad precedent, and other organizations will be reluctant to donate food to them if they feel that they are just suing donors left and right. And then on the flip side, people that go to soup kitchens or food pantries to get food, they're reluctant to sue those food pantries and soup kitchens because they depend on them for their nutrition. So really, this Good Samaritan Act is a really strong protection, and it's unparalleled anywhere in the world. The U.S. is one of the only countries that offers such broad protection to food donors. And also, here at the USDA, we always encourage food donation, and we even, the National School Lunch Act was actually amended in 2011 to explicitly say that we encourage organizations that participate in all our programs, National School Lunch Program, School Breakfast Program, After School Feeding, Summer Food Service Program, to donate their wholesome excess food, but to make sure that it is safe and properly stored before you donate it. It's because the Bill Emerson Good Samaritan Act protects food donors who donate in good faith and take all those steps to make sure that their food is safe. But the Bill Emerson Good Samaritan Act does not protect people that donate food with gross negligence. So as long as you're taking all the necessary precautions, then you should be fine. I don't think.
And
I have
Jimmy,
enough
can I
time to go.
interrupt one second?
Yes.
I just want to say, too, the Samaritan Act has never been challenged. There's absolutely no challenges ever and no case law. So just a pretty strong piece of legislation.
Yes, yes, indeed. And if you look at that report, the University of Arkansas did the research, and they couldn't find any challenge to the law. And I think that will be the case for the foreseeable future as more and more people donate. And even talking to a lot of the food recovery organizations like the Food Donation Connection, Feeding America, Food Bank Network, even talking to some of them, they have never had any problems with I guess, food illnesses from food that is donated to them. So I think if schools take the necessary precautions when they set up their food recovery program, I think everything should be okay. And then going down to it, if you do face some...
Interrupt you, I know you're running... Jimmy, I'm sorry, I know you're running short of time, and I apologize for the time management. The one thing I'd like you to skip to is the USDA's liability and what can and cannot be donated through a school lunch program. Would that be possible?
Yes, I can get to that. Basically, at the federal level, the Food and Drug Administration, through their food code, will regulate food safety. And then at the state level, the state government usually adopts the FDA food code. But then at the local level, the local public health department can pass different ordinances to make their food safety laws more stringent. So that's kind of how it goes. At the USDA level, we do not say what foods can or cannot be donated. We just encourage schools to donate foods safely, and foods that they can't donate to go ahead and donate them. But it's largely decided at the state level by the state government, and it's usually the state health department and also the state education department to decide what schools can and cannot donate. And then at the local level, there might be some variations on that as well. And so going back to this slide about if your state is a home rule state or a Dillon's rule state, if your state is a Dillon's rule state, largely whatever is passed at the state level, the counties have to follow unless a specific legislation is passed by the General Assembly. A home rule state gives a lot of powers over to the county already. And so in home rule states, the counties can decide to adopt different standards. And when we talk about food recovery, this can mean more stringent laws when it comes to, or more stringent restrictions when it comes to food donation. So basically, what you have to do as a school is to formulate a good plan if you want to implement a food recovery program, and talk to your school leaders and also involve the local health department at an early level. And if they don't let you donate some things but some other things, I think that's a good start. But as Kathleen says, as you get further and further along in your food recovery program, I think you can work with your local health department to relax some of those restrictions as they see that you're doing it safely and no one's getting sick, and that your program is pretty successful. And an organization like Food Rescue, based in Indiana, actually worked with their State Department of Education and Department of Health to actually come up with food recovery and share table guidelines. So it is possible for you as a school district or a school to work closely with your departments, state departments of education and Department of Health, to come up with new guidelines if your state or county doesn't already have some of those guidelines. Here are just some basic tips about recovering food waste, and I know some of the other presenters have already gone over it. Don't assume food can't be donated. Food banks, food pantries, soup kitchens take fresh produce, hot prepared foods, processed goods, and work with your food pantry or soup kitchen or food bank in formulating a good plan and schedule for pickup and delivery. And then also involve your local health department at an early level to see what you can and cannot donate. And if you're encountering problems, usually right now there's about 189 local food policy councils around the country, and in your area there may be a local food policy council made up of food advocates from all different areas that you could possibly work with to get them involved in changing some of the rules around food recovery and donation in your school. And that's a very powerful ally to have if you're encountering problems. But yet again, some schools do not have any problems at all. I've talked to many schools that said a food recovery program is one of the easiest things that we've ever had to set up. And then I talked to some people who right off the bat say, I don't think we can do this because our school won't let us. But then I asked them, have you even checked And they say, well, no, not really. So the first thing to do is just educate yourself about the laws around liability, around food donation, food recovery at your county, federal, state, and county level, and then formulate a good plan and then involve all the people that have to be involved, and I don't think you will have a problem. And as Gloria and Kathleen said, involve the students. It makes it more sustainable. The students love to be involved and feel like they're empowered. Okay, and just some ideas out here for you. I go back to the example of a K-12 food rescue, an organization based out of Indiana that does similar work to what Kathleen does at the food bus. And this year they're actually awarding 5 $1,000 scholarships to high schools as part of their student-led entrepreneurship initiative to find the next great food rescue entrepreneurs. So as a school, you could find ways to assign students projects to analyze the food waste, to come up with strategies to reduce food waste. And if your school has some money, these can, be spent to let the students have money to formulate projects and do different innovative stuff. And then Chesterburg Elementary School, I just want to mention, I think Kathleen was actually instrumental in setting up their food recovery program, but they're actually going to be presenting at our USDA Farmers Market at night this Friday and talking about food waste. So there's different ways that you can involve your school in educating the larger community about food waste. And here is a nice study that I know you all are being bombarded by different studies to read, but here's a nice chart about reasons why people want to reduce food waste. One is save money, and I just want to focus your attention on number 2, setting an example for children. I think that's very important. Children are bombarded with commercials about food every day, about on the Cartoon Network, on Nickelodeon, and then when we go to the grocery store or a restaurant, they just see food everywhere, so they don't value food as much as they should. So, just setting up these food recovery programs in school and incorporating it into your curriculum, that is a great way to get students to know where their food comes from, to value it, and also to make them more conscientious about the world around them. And as Kathleen said, social justice and the effect of food and growing food on our environment. And then here's another chart about reasons why people waste food. People are worried about food poisoning. So here at the USDA, one of the things we have to do is make sure that we educate people on how to store food safely and how to prepare food safely and what leftovers you can and cannot use. And one of the ways we did that was to actually launch an app called the Food Keeper app to help consumers know how to store food and how to prepare food safely. And then number 2 is people always want to eat the freshest foods. I guess that's okay. And some people think that composting absolves them of the guilt of wasted food, but really, when you think about it, growing food for compost is not very efficient at all. Secondly, or the 4th reason is people don't think that throwing away food costs them money, which is very true because Americans only spend about 6.4% of their annual expenditures on food, and is one of the lowest annual expenditures compared to any other country. For comparison, a country like Pakistan, people will spend actually half of their income on food, whereas here in the U.S. we only spend 6.4%. So, food is cheap here in America, but we should still find ways to reduce food waste and recover it. And I think I got to wrap it up. We've been here before. We've tried to fight food waste before, back in World War II, when it was very important for the war effort. But we're bringing it around full circle, and this time I want everyone to just commit to not making it some type of passing fad, but just putting things in place to make it sustainable in your school, in your household, where food waste is reduced and recovered, or lastly, recycled, composted, or fed to animals, what have you. And then just
Jimmy,
go to US Food Waste Challenge. It's an abundance of resources. There you go.
So Jimmy's website is excellent. It has a lot of resources. I'm sorry we pushed it to the end today. We just had so many good questions and presenters. So thank you all for participating. You are the most important part of our Web Academy, and we hope you continue to join us. Please follow up with us if you need additional information. I've been chatting with some of you along the way. Please complete our evaluation so we can continue to bring you programming and feedback to meet your needs. Thank you so much, and this concludes today's session. And panelists, thank you very, very much. Bye-bye.